Today on the Magic for Life podcast, Brenden is the founder of MasterTalk, a YouTube channel started to help the world master the art of public speaking and communication. He helps purpose-driven entrepreneurs achieve their milestones in life and master their message. We're so excited to have him on the podcast. We'll cue the intro and we'll get started. I've spent the last 20 years studying, teaching, and coaching people to find their greatness and take their lives to the next level. Along the way, it's become evident that emotions are at the root of everybody's successes and failures. Worry and fear are the enemies, and it's time to forge the armor and earn the tools to overcome the two things that could single-handedly destroy your future. Hi, my name is Michael Johnson, and I'm a life coach, a peak performance trainer, and I'm the emotions guy. It's time to take back control of how you feel, control of how you act, and control of how you experience life. It's time to become a lifer, a new breed of overachiever focused on living every minute to its fullest. We are responsible for how we feel, and no one and no thing can make us feel anything. Emotional mastery is our journey, and emotional education and intelligence is the key. We are lifers, and this is Magic for Life. What's up, lifers? Michael Johnson here with the Magic for Life podcast, and we're so excited to have our next guest, Brenden. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am excited to have you here.
Love the energy, Michael. Happy to be on.
Awesome. And you're from up in Montreal, so you know it's you guys have some pretty crazy weather there, from being hot to being absolutely ridiculously cold. I don't know how you live there.
It teaches you to be more adaptive with everything that you do in life. So
Nice.
any unexpected situation for us, like COVID, was it's just a normal thing,
Yeah, I wish that's how it was here. That's for sure.
Yeah.
What were you born in Montreal? Born and raised?
You got it, born and raised.
Nice. Do you speak French?
Yes, I do.
2 languages or more?
I speak 3. Yeah.
3. Oh my gosh, I can barely keep track of my one. Okay, so here's the question I love to ask about languages. Do you speak all 3 fluently?
Correct.
Nice. And which one do you think in?
English, for sure.
Yeah. Do you
So
find yourself dreaming in the others, or?
no, actually, it's a good point.
Huh.
Never. Not even once.
Really?
Yeah, I've never.
Huh. I find that interesting. I don't speak any other languages. I was stubborn when I was a child and didn't learn Spanish because my family spoke Spanish in the household, but I was stubborn. I should have learned it. Yeah. Another goal. Well, you know what? For my audience, they may or may not know you, and we want them to know you. That's why you're on the podcast. So tell us a little bit about your backstory and how you got to here, and what you're all about, what you do, so that they can hear it from your lips.
Yeah, for sure. So the nutshell is, grew up in poverty, didn't have a lot of money. So the only thing on my mind was getting a great job after university. So I went to business school. Then when I got there, I had a couple of options: go be an accountant, go do work in consulting, or go be a banker on Wall Street. So I was like, oh, exciting stuff. So anyways, I worked really hard. I did a lot of things called case competitions. Think of it like professional sports, but for nerds. So instead of your coach yelling at you to get your basketball hoops in, to kick the soccer ball, to do football, I did the exact same thing in presentations. So while other guys my age were eating chicken wings and watching sports, I was watching presentations, and I was going, this presentation is not good. Anyways, it was a lot of fun. So anyway, suffice to say, I've been coaching people since I was 19. And for the 3 years that followed in university, I presented hundreds of times, went to a bunch of competitions, coached a lot of amazing people. And then I got my dream job in consulting. Then after I started working consulting, and I still do today, and I absolutely love what I do, what changed was I transitioned from how do I make money and use that money to make an impact on the world, to how do I use my most valuable assets, which is my time and my knowledge. That's when the idea for MasterTalk came, because I realized that a lot of the content on public speaking communication, to use a better word, or not having a better term for it, was terrible. Like, it was bad on YouTube. So I just started making videos in my basement when I was 22, and then one thing led to another 18 months later. And here we are with MasterTalk. It's been a successful YouTube channel. I've had a lot of fun doing it as well.
My goodness, you've done a lot of things already, and you are so. I mean this in the most positive way, but you're young. Like you're like killing it. That's awesome.
I
Um,
appreciate that.
why did you decide YouTube?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. So when you look at all the other social media, so we have Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and the like. The issue with Instagram is it's not the best place to teach public speaking content, even if I have a page, because it's like short form, right? You have 60 seconds. You can't really teach the world anything. Facebook organic reach is dead, so I couldn't really go to Facebook, even if I have a page once
Right.
again, but it's not really huge. TikTok's fun, TikTok's cool. TikTok's not the easiest thing to teach communication languages to a wider audience. Once again, having an account doesn't really work. Snapchat, who uses Snapchat anyways? So naturally, as you can see from the string of elimination here, I was left with three choices: blog, podcast, or YouTube. It's just the idea with blogs and podcasts. They're great mediums because you control the platform, right? No one can tell you what to do on those things or censor out the content. But it's hard for you to grow those types of platforms without having some sort of algorithm, some sort of platform help you grow it. And YouTube's just the best place to have long form video. And obviously, being a speaker, what I noticed was a lot of speaking coaches mostly taught speaking through blogs or books. And I was like, aren't you supposed to like demonstrate it if you're good at public speaking? So that's why I went with YouTube, and I've been really focused on that platform specifically since.
That's great, and your videos are awesome. For all of my audience out there, they need to go and subscribe and listen to your stuff because you're so clear and you're so concise, and you can tell your background. You're telling us your story, and it is very obvious and it's very clear that when we watch your videos that you know what you're talking about. You get it. You've done the research, you've studied it, and you're practicing it. And that's the part that you just mentioned with doing YouTube videos. You're actually doing what you're saying, and I'm a big fan of that. I told you earlier my history is in ballroom. I was a professional ballroom dancer, and it's disheartening when you see these coaches and teachers teaching these things that they don't do, and you're like, but you just said, and you're not. so so it's great. For all of you guys out there, you should go check it out. But tell me a couple of things. We love to talk about mindset. We love to talk about this idea of improving personally from the inside out. And obviously, I love to talk to entrepreneurs, and that's partially why you're here today, because we love to talk to people like yourself that went out and you decided to do something about it. And like you said, it was a hobby, and it starts as a hobby, but then it goes into something more, and you've run with it. And as you develop your business, it's not like everything always works out. And we know that as entrepreneurs, it just doesn't happen like that. It's not corporate. There's not somebody paying the bills. If there's no money coming in, it's your
Yeah.
fault. Like we have to take the responsibility. So when everything wasn't, I mean, we've all had these times and it's different, right? But when everything wasn't working out and maybe there wasn't as much money coming in, how did you keep your emotions in check and keep pushing through it to get to the point where you are now?
Right. And I always like to give controversial advice, and I think the best way of going about this is setting the right intention for what you actually want. Because a lot of people I find are very lack direction. They just go, I don't know what I want. So naturally, they give up really quickly whenever they do. So the remedy, the antidote, is the following question: who suffers from your inability to take action? So every day that you make the decision not to do anything, who suffers from that indecision? And the more specific you are about that person, the better and more effective that technique becomes. So I'll give you my sense of it. So one side of the coin that's not very useful to us, but is worth mentioning for most of us, is Brendan's unqualified. Brendan's a kid. Why is Brendan teaching all these CEOs? Why is he in public speaking? He shouldn't be making videos, right? But the other side of the coin that's a lot more interesting is who suffers if I don't decide to take action? The 16-year-old who can't afford me, who wants to make a difference in the world, who wants to raise a bit of money for charity, Julia, that's what she does. She goes on YouTube all the time. So when she types public speaking tips on the platform, what does she find? A bunch of old 60-year-olds who don't know anything about public speaking. So I had two choices: let people tell me what they thought I was capable of, or B, help Julia. So I obviously went with B. So I think, and Julia's representation of everybody, by the way, of every single 16-year-old who can't afford me, which is every 16-year-old. So the idea is simple. If you really stay razor focused on the person you're actually doing this for, you'd never lose motivation. Just to really put a nail in the coffin here, I have my content until July of 2021. I'm in the process this year of writing my content for the next 5 years. That's how obsessive I am on YouTube, because I want to win. But the reason I want to win is because I really want to make sure that as I become more successful and as the business takes off, that Julia doesn't get left behind. So I want to make all my content in advance for her.
That's awesome. And what a commitment to the planning. And I you said something that struck a chord, because I hear it so often with entrepreneurs. They oftentimes are one launch in mind, and not multiple launches, or not what their year looks like or their next 5 years. And you look at the people that are massively successful in the business, and they are doing what you just said. They have their next 2, 3, 4 years planned out. And it's not that they're immovable objects. And I think that's what maybe stops a lot of people, but it's that they're thinking ahead and going, I have somebody to serve. And I love that. I love that we can hear your avatar, and it's so important. Like I can't even, I've got to make sure and go back myself and make sure that I have that clear, because that's what we do this for. We do it so we can get clarity. When you look at that, it kind of leads me to the next question, which is, if we know what you focus on, you get, and you're talking about your avatar, Julia, and what you're focusing on attaining and what you're doing for that client. Can you give us some insight on what the last 5 years has been like in your focus, and what you've been, maybe where you were at 5 years ago, and how you changed your focus to be where you're at now? Like what have you been focusing on to do this?
I love that. So just to give people an idea, 5 years ago, I was dead broke. I had no corporate job, no business connections, obviously didn't have the skills or aptitude for MasterTalk. I was just a regular guy. So I went from that to where I am today. So what's the difference in those 5 years? The difference is I always knew what I wanted and what I needed to achieve in that given moment. And the best way to achieve that, because I know a lot we talk about passion and try a bunch of stuff, that doesn't work, okay? At least in my opinion, or everyone else would have passions. I think the better thing to start focusing on is two things. The first thing is figuring out what you don't want to do. That is very uplifting, very empowering, and you actually feel like you're making progress on something. I'll give you an example with me. I was really good at math, but also terrible at everything else. So when I was 12, I made a list of all of the career paths I could potentially have, not to make an impact or anything, just so I can put food on the table, right? Simple. Start at surviving, then we move to thriving. So when I looked at all the careers, I was like, well, I don't want to be a pastor. Not to hit on those careers, just not something I want to. I don't want to be a scientist. And then gradually over time, as I did that over 3 hours, I landed on actuary and accountant. And then I was like, well, I don't want to calculate the statistics of someone dying, which is what actuaries do, by the way, for your audience who might not know that. So I went with accountant and never changed my mind for a decade. So what this does is it doesn't force us into a decision, but it forces us to make one in the moment, right? Because you never know if your decision is right. You just got to make sure you keep making one. That's the first part. The second part is, how do you make the right decision? Because that requires a strong level of judgment. And I believe the best way to get that judgment, which is unconventional, but I believe to be true, is to become more insane. I have this old saying that I live by, which is be insane or be the same. If your goal in life is to be the same like everyone else, whether it's, I don't know, getting a job, getting married, having 2.5 kids, having a white picket fence, if that's the dream for you, go for it. Buy your BMW, be happy. But I'm assuming it's not for most people who are on this podcast or listening in. So my advice to you is to learn to be more insane. What does this mean? in practical terms. The technique I like to use that most of you won't do, but I hope you do, is communicate the weird things that you do that are not illegal to everyone around you. So what does this do? It forces you to say the weird things about you in public, because we're all weird. It's just we choose not to communicate that. I'll start. I dance alone in my basement for an hour a day. Not as well as you do, though, I would argue. I love Justin Bieber. I can speak 3 languages, but I can karaoke in 8. But notice the weirdness, but notice more the confidence in which I exude those things. If you start to do that, be more insane, you'll make better judgments and decisions that will lead you to where you actually want to be.
Awesome. And you've expressed that you like working with young people, and it certainly seems like that's a message that our young entrepreneurs and young people as a whole need to hear, because so many people, so many of these young kids don't feel like they can do that, and it's unfortunate that that's not being taught. But that's a message that it seems like is hugely important for us to continue to pass on to so many of our kids. So I believe, and this was one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the podcast in itself, amongst many. But I believe in this idea that our communication is directly related to our quality of life, not just our communication outwards, but our communication inwards. And, you're obviously talking a lot about public speaking and about being able to speak. And I believe that probably has something to do with how you speak to yourself as well. And so what do you find yourself saying to yourself, and as far as communication on a regular basis, that keeps you positive, that keeps you going and moving forward? What kind of things are you actually saying?
Right. I think the first one, and I love what you mentioned here, is it's equally important of what you say to yourself as it is about what other people say of you. What do I mean by this? Do I mean people who judge you? No, no, no. I mean the people that you're talking to most frequently, that you make the decision to talk to. So the whole average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So the first step I would do is not improve my self-talk, because I think that's very hard for someone to do who's around negative people to begin with. So I think the first step is to rinse out your friends. And the best way to rinse people out really quickly, even it'll be painful short term, but let me tell you, it's a bliss long term. I don't have a single negative person in my life. Not a single one. Not even one. And I'm very happy. So how did I do this? You go up to every friend that you have and you say all the weird things about you. Yeah, I had mayonnaise on my or bread, something crazy. I don't know. What's 90% of the people will do will go, "You're disgusting. Why are you doing this? This is wrong." Right? And they're going to move away from you. To you, in the short term, this seems bad. Oh, Brenden, I don't want to do this, because your brain is wired for survival, not happiness. And you know that as well as anyone. But what happens is the 10% of the people you tell this to, they go, okay, like, go be you, go be happy. Those are the people you want to hold on to. I have met thousands of people in my life. I have 6 friends. That's it. That is it. Everyone else is someone I add value to, someone they add value to me. I only have 6 friends that I would do anything for. And that's all you need. Because then when you go from there, then those 6 people will actually tell you what's happening. They'll give you constructive criticism, but they'll also remind you of what you're trying to achieve. There's a bunch of times when I give up on MasterTalk, those 6 people go, come on, you got to get this done. Like, a lot of people need you. And I go, yeah, you're right. That's the first step. Now the second one, now that you've rinsed out your circle as much as you can, then you can start to improve what you tell yourself. So how do we do this? It's not about waking up every day and saying, I'm great, I'm amazing. That works, that's cool. That's not the kind of stuff I like to do. What I do instead is I do the habit that most people don't. And I'm not talking about exercise, I'm not talking about yoga. I'm talking about asking yourself the hard questions about life. Confidence and high self-esteem stems from a belief system and figuring out what you're actually going to stand for. Simple as that. I'll give you one example of those questions that literally no one answers or knows the answer to. If you had all the money in the world, how would you spend your time? You would be boggled, Michael. Most of the people I ask this question to just respond with travel. So I always go, so what are you going to do? Travel and then die in 40 years? And they go, no. Then what are you going to do with your day? Are you going to wake up at 8, 9, 10? Are you going to wake up with a wife, a husband, two wives, two husbands, a dog, a cat? Are you even in a house? Are you changing countries during the day? What's actually happening? We're all stuck in this matrix trying to retire to 65 when Steve Jobs died at 56. And I'm just like, what's happening? And then what happens is you start to question everything. Why do I need to get married? Why do I not start a YouTube channel? Makes sense to me if people need the information. Why do I need to get married? Why do I need to have 2.5 kids? Why not just 2? Right? When you start to question everything, that's when your self-talk, that's when you loving yourself starts to happen, because you actually start to develop a point of view on how the world should be. And I'll use myself once again as an example. For the record, I am the only 6-figure earner you'll ever have on this call who lives with his mother, who doesn't own a car. Why? Because the number one priority in my life is making sure MasterTalk works. So I funnel 30% of all my salary into my production, which is insane to most people, but it makes perfect sense to me.
That's the truth. And I mean, that is so much about what we're talking about, is that you're doing what you're saying you're doing, and getting that internalized, and getting that to connect. Usually the problems occur when there's conflict. And when you're in line and you're congruent like you are, then it works. And it's amazing how just the congruency will make such a big difference. Along the way, as an entrepreneur, there are so many instances where things come up, things that we are perfectly capable about worrying about, and perfectly capable of having fear about. How have you learned to manage and control fear and worry?
I would say for fear and worry, the best way that I think about it is I always ask myself where the fear stems from. So let's say, for instance, for me, when the hardest thing for me about the YouTube channel isn't about scaling the platform or coming up with the content, it was to post my first video. That was the biggest frightened or scary part of that whole process. So how did I get over the lump? I got over the lump because the message I had to share mattered more than the fear. And this translates well into public speaking fear as well. This is because I know a lot of people are scared of public speaking. I totally get it. I was there. All my life I presented a language I didn't even know, because I grew up in a French system and I didn't know the French language. So if anyone struggled, it was definitely me. So if I can do it, you can too. So the key is simple to fear. Fear will always be there. I'm still scared to this day. There's always audiences that I present to that I'm not sure of. There's always podcasts I'm on that I feel are too big for me. Things like that. But the difference is that the message, the belief system, the values, what I actually stand for, what I want to do, means a lot more and weighs a lot more than the fear. So the fear is never shown. I'll give another extreme exercise, because I always like to give different advice than what most people say, than just like follow your dreams. I want you all, and I know most of you won't, but if you choose to actually pursue what you want to do this following exercise. Write the speech that you want your family to say at your funeral. That has been the most life-changing exercise I've ever done in my life. And the thing that you'll notice from that letter that I've written is there's no word should. Like, I don't want anybody to say, oh, Brenden had a lot of potential. He could have been this, or he could have done this. That's why I didn't wait 10 years to start MasterTalk. My whole plan was, let's wait until I'm 30. I'll have $500,000 in my bank account from working in consulting, and then I can start MasterTalk. But what if I get into an accident at 27? Then what? Then nothing gets shared. So what I want my letter to say is Brenden did achieve that. He was successful in this endeavor, and that made me razor focused. So even if I'm still scared, I'm pushing through it because I need to make sure that the letter I have written down is the letter that gets said.
That's pretty powerful. That's really cool. I hope everybody goes and does that. You know, you and I had a conversation right before we started, and that oftentimes there's a lot of people saying a lot of stuff, but not actually telling you how to do it. And he just told you how to do it and what to do. Like, go and do that right now. Like, you can pause the video. We'll be here when you get back. You know,
Yeah.
like,
We ain't going anywhere.
yeah, good old digital, you know, but go and do that. That's awesome. And it's sounds like an amazing experience to go through and feel through. And I'd like to kind of head into, I call it our speed round. I like to talk about emotions because I feel like emotions sort of are the core of why we do things. You know, we do things to feel calm or stable or happy or sad, and yes, we do things to feel sad, you know, like we do it on purpose, and it's an interesting thing. So I love to be able to connect entrepreneurs and my other listeners as well to the real Brenden, not just the one that they might be afraid of going, well, I can't do that. He can do it, but I can't do that. You know, you know how it is, right? We talk to that all the time. So in the speed round, I'll give you a category, and we just want the emotion that goes with that category for you. So we talk about our go-to emotions, and we talk about our limiting emotions, our go-to emotions for when things are going well, and our limiting emotions for when things are going poorly. So obviously you're an entrepreneur and you're in business. So in business, when things are going well, what's your go-to emotion?
Happiness, probably, or just dominance. I just like winning. I'm very competitive.
Okay. And when in business, when things are going poorly, what's your limiting emotion?
Limiting emotion is a bit of fear for sure, but I think impatience is probably more accurate. Like, it's like, why is this problem happening? Why didn't I catch this?
Yeah.
Frustration,
Yeah.
anger, probably.
Okay. In any partnerships that you've been in and worked through, when things are going well, what's your go-to emotion?
Um, how, like I feel like we're moving towards a goal really fast. So I would say something like exhilaration,
Okay.
right? Excitement.
Cool. And when things are going poorly in a partnership, what's your limiting emotion?
I'll say for the record, I got really lucky with my partner, so that hasn't happened yet. But I would say in teams that I haven't worked well with, definitely annoyance. Like, I just don't like people who don't work as hard as me. So I'm very picky. I just got lucky with my partners because my partners are fantastic.
Right.
But yeah, it's definitely happened in the past.
Cool. Now you have we have two sides of coaching, one where you are being the coach and one where you're being coached. So when you are the coach and things are going well, what's your go-to emotion?
I love these questions, by the way. It makes me think a lot. I would say to be a coach, I get excited like for the result that I know what they're going to get, but they don't know it yet.
Yeah. And when you're the coach and things are going poorly, what's the limiting emotion?
Definitely a bit of impatience, but not too much, or else you can't really be a coach. But I think it's more about disappointment. That's probably limiting belief. Like, why didn't they get it?
Yeah.
But obviously it's my own insecurity, my own fault if they don't get it. But that's something that comes up.
Yeah. Okay. And then let's switch it when you are being coached, because all great entrepreneurs, we all have our coaching. We all have the people we look to and our mentors. When you're being coached and things are going well, what's your go-to emotion?
Yeah, and just for the record, I have like 4 coaches. You're definitely right. You need coaches in every area of life. When I'm being coached, I'm always happy all the time. Even especially when I'm getting my head smashed into the wall. I just love learning. I love growing. So I'm always happy when I get on a great call with a coach.
Cool. And limiting belief or limiting emotion when things are going poorly when you're being coached.
Limiting. It's more self-inflicting. So I would say disappointment towards myself. So I've never like, oh, the coach didn't know this or that. It's more about, oh, why couldn't I figure this out? Why couldn't I get this right? And so frustration, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, and maybe just the next category, relationships. Relationships. Go to emotion when things are going well.
That's just relationships with friends and family, everything together,
Friends,
right?
family, significant others.
Awesome, awesome. When things are going great, I feel like we're all like it's all working. So in the sense of calmness, that's the right one. Yeah.
Cool. And when things are going poorly.
Lack of connection. So I would say a disconnectivity, or that this feeling that like you don't understand me and I don't understand you.
Yeah.
So disconnectedness.
Cool. And someday we'll have you back on the podcast when you have children, and we'll ask you about your kids.
That'll be in a long time. Long time.
Well, you know what, Brenden? I'm so honored and privileged to have you here today and join us on the show. I know our guests are going to be just absolutely blown away, and I hope they all go and listen to your channel. They all need to go subscribe because it's awesome. There's so much there for you. But beyond that, and I'll put the link in, of course, in the description below so that they can find you. But beyond that, how else can they connect to you? How else can they go and learn from you?
Yeah, for sure. And what I always like to say to people is I'm not famous like Michael or anything, so you can just message me directly on Instagram. I'm at Master Your Talk. I answer every single one of my DMs. And my YouTube channel is MasterTalk in one word. So feel free to check that out as well.
Cool. I mean, it's cool. You guys are gonna love his channel, and I'm, like I said, I'm honored, privileged, glad to have you here today, and I look forward to doing some more with you in the future.
Honor is mine, Michael. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Want more magic for life? If so, then reserve your copy of my new book. Get your copy at everyminutebook.com. Inside this book, you'll find the secrets to attaining the next level of performance in anything you do. Learn the secrets behind emotional mastery that'll start you on your new journey of being a lifer. Whether you're an athlete, a business professional, or an artist, this book will change your life forever. Get your copy reserved today.